Welcome to Proud Product Peeps. Today's guest is Laura Dolan, who lives in Columbus, Ohio, and has had an unbelievable journey from meteorology to B2B SaaS marketing. Laura talks about why being a chameleon is not a bad thing. All right, Laura, thanks for joining Proud Product Peeps. I really appreciate it, and it's great to see you.
It's great to see you too, Justin. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a while.
I know it has. It's interesting catching up with folks during these podcasts. I'm like, hey, we haven't seen each other for like 2 years or something.
Exactly. Yeah. That's why you stay in touch. That's why you network. It's great.
So I wanted to start off on something that is top of everybody's mind because I think it's something that they think about every single day, and that's Y2K. I know that it's something that
So
crosses my mind. Exactly. It's so relevant in 2024. But I found it interesting that you marched in the Rose Bowl parade, which is interesting unto itself. But you marched on Y2K, and it's very first thing on New Year's Day. What was that experience like?
It's funny you bring this up because did you see there's a movie coming out about Y2K?
No.
So it was basically like a dystopian type of apocalypse movie, but that's a whole other subject for a whole other day. But yeah, so I was a junior in high school. I went to Mount Carmel High School in San Diego, California. I was part of the Mount Carmel Marching Sun Devils, and we were invited to the Rose Parade, the 111th Rose Parade. And it was 1999 when we were practicing for it. We were on the news. It was a huge deal. I remember when they announced it over the intercom at our high school. And I was in my honors humanities class at the time, and there were probably 6 or 7 of us in the band. So we all jump up and cheer. And then we had other people in other classrooms come out and cheer. So it was such a great moment. So I play clarinet. I'm a quintessential nerd. And yeah, it was really cool. So it was a 3-day trip. So we did something called Band Fest, where we got to do our field show where they were building all the floats. So we got to see all the float building and see how they make everything with flowers and herbs. It's just an amazing experience. And then the next day we got to perform at Disneyland. So that was amazing. And that day was New Year's Eve. So we were at Disneyland on New Year's Eve. And after like the 9 or 10 o'clock hour, you could feel the buzz and the excitement building up in the park. And you see like they had a clock that was counting down, and it was being projected on the Matterhorn. So it was just amazing. So the Disneyland is like building up, the excitement's buzzing. We had to leave at 11 o'clock. We couldn't even stay because we had to get up at 4 a.m. to get ready for the parade. And so we had to go back and for some reason we were staying in San Bernardino, which is not close to Anaheim. If people who live in Southern California know this. So we had to drive back to San Bernardino, which took about an hour. So we got back to our hotel rooms right around midnight, and we're bracing for whatever the heck is supposed to happen for Y2K. And so we're like, they gave everybody a Y2K bug light at the hotel. I still have it. It's a keychain, and it's one of those flashlights where you pull it down and the light goes on. And I still have it. The light doesn't work anymore, but it says Y2K and, December 31st, 1999, San Bernardino Hilton. And so this is a great keepsake. So we're just ready with our flashlights. Midnight comes and goes. Nothing happens. Where it was like, well, we figured, but at least like our alarm clocks will work and we can get up and start, getting ready for the parade. So yeah, we got up, but we had a wake up call at 4 a.m. There were like 4 of us to a room. We all got up, got ready, had a nice breakfast, and then took buses down to Pasadena and lined up. We were the last band to march, and it was great because like we were on all the, obviously we were on like NBC, ABC, all the stations that broadcasted the parade, and the Home and Garden Network actually gave us the most airtime. And they were showing us not only like on the street, but they had this blimp shot of us, and you could see like how big we were. We were 350 just musicians. Then we had 150 color guard and like our flag team. So we were massive. And the fact that we were able to like keep our lines straight. I mean, that's why we were invited. Like, I don't want to brag, but it was one of the best marching bands in Southern California. So I was very proud to be a part of it. And it was perfect weather. It was cloudy. It wasn't raining. So we weren't like dying in the heat. because you never, it's a crapshoot in Southern California. It could be Santa Ana winds and 80 degrees. It could be 30 degrees and, windy. So it was a blast. And it's just one of my favorite memories of, being with my marching band. I was a junior and we had just come off of a really, really successful competition season. And yeah, we were just on a real high. So I remember it was 7 miles and I played every note. And yeah, I'm nerding out right now. So
Wow,
thank
seven
you.
miles. And I'm just thinking of Y2K that like I'm sure everybody was stressed that like, are we going to get a wake up call?
Yeah.
Are we going to be woken up? Should we just stay awake because then we don't have to worry about
Yeah,
it? And obviously we didn't have phones like
no,
smartphones at the time, so it was alarm
exactly.
clocks. And the
Yep.
whole point at that time was like anything with a computer chip is going to go crazy and not work, right?
Yeah.
So
So we had hotel staff come around and knock on everybody's door. So that was the backup plan. So they did that anyway. And yeah, so I marched that parade on like 3 hours of sleep. And but it was just the adrenaline that you felt in that moment was just amazing. And so
mm,
yeah, it was just one of those things where like I got to do that. And every time I see the Rose Parade, I'm just like, I did that. That's cool. And what's funny is my husband was also in the Rose Parade, but that was like 1988 that he was in it.
oh wow.
So he was in it a few years before me. But yeah, so it's something that we share and we get to watch it every year on New Year's Day. And it's just a great tradition. So yeah. So thank you for letting me divulge and talk about that because yeah, Y2K in the movie. Go see it in theaters.
Yes. Yeah, and Y88 just didn't have the same
No,
impacts, right?
not
So,
really.
yeah, I was in New York City, and right as the turn New Year's Eve or New Year's Day, and turn 12 o'clock, the phones didn't work, and we were like, oh my gosh! And I
Oh
think it was
no.
just, and like everybody was on all the streets in New York City, and we walked to like Central Park, and we couldn't get a signal for like 45 minutes, and we
Yeah,
just feel. I think afterwards they said it was just
the lines are
the pressure on
saturated.
the network and everything.
Yeah.
But it was interesting because it was like, oh, everything's coming to fruition
Were you
because
in
there was
Times
no like
Square?
cars out or anything. We weren't in
Right.
Times Square. We were like more near Central Park. We
Okay.
felt like we didn't want to go to. I've never been to Times Square.
Me
Never want to
neither.
go to Times Square. I
Mm-mm.
mean, like during
No.
that time. So
I've heard horror stories. I know people who have done that, and they're like, you're standing out there for 12 hours. You don't have food. You don't know where the bathrooms are. I'm like, yeah, that's something you don't think about. There are people that like order pizza and they're just like flagging down the Domino's guy in the middle of a
yeah,
crowd. Like that's got to be a nightmare. That
that's
is
not my
something.
jam. I have
No, me
no
neither.
interest.
No.
Way too many people. So yes.
Yep.
So that story is just one part of I think you have an interesting journey. You started out as a meteorology major. You're now in a barbershop chorus.
Hmm.
Can you talk a little bit about your journey and kind of where you started, where it's taken you?
Absolutely. So I had wanted to be a meteorologist since I was like 8 years old. I had tunnel vision when I was going through high school.
I'm surprised you
I
don't have a
was
green screen behind you, to be
I
honest.
know, right? Well, there is a map like right there. I could
Oh,
show you
nice.
where the hurricane is right now. But yeah, so growing up in San Diego, obviously you don't have a whole lot of weather, but I just had this gift where I could always predict when it was going to rain. And because I felt like when the conditions were right, when the barometric pressure was right, when the humidity was right. And I would tell my parents, like, hey, it's gonna rain. They're like, there's not a cloud in the sky. What do you mean? And like later that afternoon it starts raining. And the people on the news weren't even predicting that. So they're like, hey, you have a gift. And then when the movie Twister came out, obviously I was like, I want to be a storm chaser. I want to do this. I was planning to go to the University of Oklahoma. I wanted to work for the NSSL. I had all these big dreams. And obviously when reality hits, you start looking at your options and what you can afford. So being in California obviously was a lot cheaper than going out of state for college. So I went to San Jose State, which was the only school in California that offered meteorology. UC Davis had an atmospheric program, but you can actually get like an AMS credential at San Jose State. So I went to San Jose State. My freshman year was August of 2001. We all know what happened in September 2001. I was a freshman in college when 9/11 happened. Um, so my first year after 9/11, a couple months after that, my mom had told me when I went home for Thanksgiving that her cancer had come back. My mom had breast cancer in 1998. It had come back in 2001. It had metastasized to her brain and her liver and her back. And
Mm.
so at that point, I'm like, I'm gonna have to go. My dad's like, I hate to ask you to do this, but I need you to come home. I need help because I have a special needs brother. My dad had a full time job, and my mom was bedridden. And so
Mm.
I finished my first semester at San Jose State. I took a meteorology class. I had Professor Perry, shout out, he was great. And I love that class. I aced it. I just couldn't get enough of it. It was just, it was meteorology 101, it was the basics. So I go home and I was home for a year and I kept continuing with my education. I went to San Diego Miramar College. I finished all my GE credits and I was taking care of my mom. She was in the hospital 5.5 weeks. She was in ICU and then she started getting better and then she was in physical therapy. And so at the end of 2002, when I saw that she had been improving, I went back up to San Jose State and took some more courses. And my mom's health started to plummet again after I left. And so I'm like, I must be the magic feather. I must be the thing she needs, to get through this. And so at the end of that semester, I'm like, I'm just going to go home and, maybe pick this up later in life. I don't know. So when I came over spring break that year, I went to UCSD's like counseling department because I was like, if I'm going to go anywhere in San Diego, I want to go to University of California at San Diego because it's just one of the top 10 schools in the country. I'm like, I'll get a good education there. And growing up, I loved to write. I wrote books, I wrote journals, and my dad and I would email every single morning when I was at college. We call it the 6:30
Mm.
email. And I'm going over my options. And I was like, I never had a backup plan. My focus was always meteorology. I never thought about if I had to do anything else. My dad's like, you should look into journalism. You should look into writing and maybe communication. I'm like, okay, not sure what I would do with something like that, but yeah, I'll pursue it. So UCSD didn't have a journalism department, but they did have a literature department. They had a communication department. So I majored and minored in those programs, got my degree in writing and communication, and started out writing for a local magazine in San Diego. And my career just took off from there. I worked for several marketing firms in my career. I started working in B2B SaaS as early as 2010. So I got to work in all these different industries, including construction, manufacturing, supply chain, food and drink, energy, and for a bunch of different areas around the world. So I was communicating with Australia and India and the UK
Mm.
and Canada. So I was getting like a real sense of just the worldly B2B SaaS industry and talking to all these different experts all the time. And so that's kind of what shaped into where I'm at today.
Would you
Getting
always start conversations with asking about the weather?
You know what? Sometimes I did. Because like, you're making small talk. So like you're on a call and maybe you're waiting for a few other people to join. And it's like, so how's the weather in
Yeah.
Melbourne,
What's the barometric
Australia
pressure
today?
today?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And so fast forward to where I'm at right now. My husband and I moved to Columbus, Ohio in 2021 during COVID. My job at the time went 100% remote, and my husband is a professional singer, so he travels anyway for his job. And so we were like, we don't have to stay in. At the time, we were living in Phoenix. When I met him, he lived in Phoenix, so I moved to Phoenix to be with him. And I have 4 grown stepkids. 2 of them had graduated high school, so we're like, we don't need to stay in the Phoenix area anymore. And as everyone did during COVID, we were on Zillow looking at houses. And so we were like, we love the houses in Columbus. That's like our exact style that we want. And we wanted to experience the 4 seasons because he grew up in Long Beach. I grew up in San Diego. We're West Coasters. So we're like, we want to experience snow. We want to experience the fall and the turning leaves. And so because he travels so much, he was like, Columbus, Ohio is really nice. And I love the people there and I love the landscape. And so I had never been to Ohio in my life. Before February 2021, we came here for the weekend. We looked at houses. Our house in Mesa, Arizona was up for sale. They were doing an open house that weekend. Our house sold in 2 days for way more over asking price. So we were very happy about that. And we packed up our lives and moved to Ohio. We didn't have a place to live. We stayed in a couple of Airbnbs, and the house we're in now, I found this house the first weekend that we moved here, and we moved
Wow.
in like a month and a half later. So I forget where I was going with this. Oh, so my worlds collided when we have a couple of friends here that my husband knows from high school, and They told me about this weather spotter program with the National Weather Service, and they know how much I love weather. So they're like, you can actually go online, you could take their classes, take the exam, and become a certified weather spotter, which is a volunteer program. Basically, you're looking for, tornado warning, tornadic activity, torrential rain, winds, anything that could potentially cause damage, cause injury. And you call it in. There's all these different ways you can call it in. There's a phone number, there's a Facebook page, there's, like a texting emergency line. And I was over the moon. I was like, are you kidding me? Yeah. And so in March of 2022, I got certified, and I've taken other classes since then to kind of keep up my certification, keep up on the education. And so I'm like, this is amazing. And yeah, it's been a lot of fun. We actually had 3 tornado warnings in February of this year, which is very unusual. We got in the middle of the night, you hear the sirens. And I'm actually, the first time, my husband and I were like, let's get in the basement, let's get the dogs, get the cat, and let's just hunker down. And then by the third time, I'm literally on our deck and the sirens are going off, and I'm just like looking in the sky. I mean, it was like 5:45 in the morning, so it was dark out still, but I'm looking like through the lightning. I'm like, do I see any funnel activity?
Right. Should I report this?
Yeah, I should, because it wasn't even like windy. It was raining a little bit, but the circulation, and we had the news on, the circulation was like right over our area. And I'm like, if this thing touches down, like our house is, we don't know what the extent of damage is going to be. But so yeah, it's been exciting.
And now you're in the barbershop chorus, right? So yeah.
Yes. So my husband's been a barbershop singer since he was in college, and I was in a chorus in 8th grade, and that's the extent of my singing career. My dad was a professional singer in Vegas, so I have a lot of music in my family. He's a piano player, he's a guitar player, he's an amazing musician. He plays everything by ear. And I sung with his band a couple of times when he was doing shows around San Diego, like corporate shows, things like that. So up until like 2 years ago, I hadn't sung in a few years. So when we moved to Ohio, one of the things that we were looking into was barbershop. We're like, barbershop's a great community. I had no idea how like big and amazing this program was. So barbershop has an international competition every year in different parts of the country. So in 2023, it was in Louisville. Last year was in Cleveland. And I mean, 15 to 20,000 people from all over the world meet, and they have chorus competitions, they have quartet competitions. And so when we came to Ohio, there's 3 choruses that are here. There's the Land of Legend chorus here in Newark, which is an all-male chorus. The Singing Buckeyes, which is also an all-male chorus, and then the Alliance. The Alliance decided, because they changed some of the rules in barbershop harmony, it was like all male, and that was it. And that's why the Sweet Adelines International exists, because then that's all women. Because women are like, we could do this too. So the Alliance,
I assume the name would have been like the Salon, but but I guess
different kind of barbershop, Justin.
Oh, right. Okay.
And so the Alliance became an all voices chorus. So just everybody was welcome. And we say everybody, LGBTQ, it's a safe space for anyone who wants to join. So my husband and I joined the Alliance. I joined as on the board first. I wasn't singing. I was actually their VP of marketing. Shocker. So I joined in 2022, and I was doing all their paid ads and their social media, and taking pictures at rehearsal and getting hyped up for all the shows and competitions we were in. And in May of 2023, last year, I decided to audition, because my husband's like, he hears me sing along with him, and he's like, you should audition. I really think you have potential here. So I auditioned for our director. And, I had a couple of songs I had to prepare, and then he would play the notes on the piano, and then I had to like harmonize with those and then sing my 2 audition songs. And he was like, those were amazing. He's like, so I feel like your strength is lead, because I thought I was going to be a tenor, but he was like, no, I think you should be a lead. And so like my first night singing with the chorus, I couldn't believe the amount of like support and excitement. Everybody's come up to me like high-fiving. They're like, you are awesome. Like,
that's amazing.
And your presence. And I'm like, well, I've watched enough barbershop, to know like how to act on stage. And my husband was also a director for the Tucson Barbershop Experience for 7 years, back in the mid 2000s. And then he got another job here as a director of the Dogwood Blossoms chorus, which is a Sweet Adeline's chorus, and that's all women. So of course, last year I go see their annual show, and I was still singing with the Alliance, and all the women are coming up to me because, you know, I'm the director's wife, and they're like, "Are you going to join us? Please join us." And I'm like,
Oh, that's amazing.
I said, okay, because basically how they recruit is at the end of the year, and we're starting on October 21st. Anyone who's in Columbus and wants to sing, we're starting our Christmas and holiday music because we do community caroling in November and December. So that's an opportunity for women to come and just sing with us. We'll have audio tracks and you'll have to read music. And it's just a really fun way to get to know like what barbershop is like, get to know the ladies and sing really fun holiday music that everybody knows. And there's no strings attached. You don't have to pay dues yet. But when you do join, you do have to start, you know, paying an international due and chapter dues, things like that. So I joined the Dogwood Blossoms chorus officially in January of this year, and I sing baritone because it's a whole different type of key, it's a whole different type of scale for Sweet Adelines. So I sing baritone, and then we lost a couple of basses after we did competition back in May. And my
Like
husband's
you
like,
left them at the competition,
yeah,
or
yeah, no,
you,
they liked it in Cleveland, so they just stayed there.
oh yeah, you
Um,
lost them to Cleveland.
yeah, yeah, they were like, screw Columbus, we're staying here. Um, um, my husband was like, we need a bass, and he's like, and he turns to me, he's like, "You have a deep voice." I'm like, "I do." He's like, I'm like, "You want me to sing bass? I could try." And now I'm bisectional. So we have a show this weekend, and half the songs I'm singing baritone, the other half I'm singing bass. So
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah, what an eclectic personal experience, from meteorology to
Mhm.
singing to marching in the parade. But
I try to
I'm
do it
curious.
all.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, so cool. Curious from a career perspective, what has made you the most proud of an accomplishment or a process or working with people. What's made you most proud in your career?
That is a great question. Like I mentioned earlier, I think the different types of industries I've gotten to work with and the people I've met along the way. When you're a writer and a marketer, you become a subject matter expert in whatever industry or product or company you're working with. And so whenever I join a company and learn about a product, I immerse myself and I make sure that I become a subject matter expert, a brand ambassador, an advocate, a brand champion, so that I can give the most like credibility and the most, the best way I could portray the company in that moment. And so, yeah, I'm proud of how I've evolved. I mean, I started out as, like I said, a freelance writer for a local newspaper and magazine in San Diego to now being, a content director for some of the bigger companies, of course, Optimizely. I loved my time there. Shout out to Ellen, who was my boss from Amsterdam. She was great. But yeah, just getting to experience all the different touch points in omnichannel marketing and getting to evolve with the times. So it's not just about written content anymore. It's about video, it's about podcasting, it's about, all these different ways that we can engage with our audience, especially with the dawn of TikTok. It's opened this whole other realm in how we engage with our audience and our fans, if you will.
Yeah.
But yeah, just I pride myself on keeping up with the trends and just making sure that I'm on top of, whatever kind of thought leadership is out there that portrays companies and products in the best way that they can be and meets audiences halfway with their pain points. And so it's like, here's your pain point, here's our solution. Boom. Like it's that simple.
I love that. I mean, I think
Mhm.
it's from personal experience, it's very difficult to immerse yourself in the industry and the personas, the individuals,
Right.
and the problems and the solutions. Like, even though there's some commonality because it's B2B software, for instance, like you're saying,
Mhm.
but the industry and the users have different pain points. And I love the fact that, you're most proud of immersing yourself and I don't want to say chameleon because it's usually a bad thing, but in this case, it's really good that you're able to absorb it, understand it, articulate
Mhm.
it, And you're right. Like you have to spend a ton of time. An individual has to spend a ton of time to learn all of those different things, and then figure out based on your experience what may relate. So that's quite amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, I think you can use the term chameleon. I think that's
Don't
a
you think that it's
fair.
usually determined as a bad thing? Like I
No, I
started
think that's
saying it.
no. I think it can be spun into a positive thing. I think
Okay, good, because
it's
that's how I meant it.
no, it's a compliment. I feel like that's what marketers are, and that's what writers are. We do have
Mm,
to become immersed in whatever different world that we're involved in. And let me tell you, like, I've been in food and drink, I've been in pet products, I've been in real estate, I've been in B2B commerce and A/B testing. My last company, I was involved with software for the towing industry, and that, let me tell you, that ICP was interesting to say the
hmm
least. Fun people, great people. It's a family industry, so you get to hear about the
But it's way more
legacy.
difficult because you don't understand it as a consumer. Most of the other things you can understand as a consumer
Right.
of that end customer. But in this case, I can imagine like very little understanding of, most people have very little understanding of the towing industry. So you really have to immerse yourself.
Well, you also have to look at it as a customer, because you don't realize how much the towing industry is valuable till you need them.
Right.
And I've been in situations where I had to call a towing company because I locked myself out of my car one time. That's the only time I think I've ever needed a tow truck or some kind of
Mm,
towing assistance. Um, but yeah, great people. It was a lot of fun creating content for that company.
that's awesome. As a big fan of strength finders, I've brought it up on most of these podcasts. I feel like the top three that you have are super interesting. And I think everybody can gather from this conversation your high energy, super positive, but your three are communication, which makes
Mhm.
perfect sense. We probably don't need to talk about that. Positivity and empathy. I think
Mhm.
positivity piece, I think, is so critical. I feel like today not many people have it. It's everybody focuses on, a lot of people focus on the negative and such, but
Yeah.
maybe talk a little bit about how you use positivity, whether implicitly or explicitly in your day to day.
Absolutely. And I'll say this, I've worked for some really toxic companies where it's been a challenge to rise above all the negativity and just, all the gossiping and murmuring, especially on Slack or Teams. But when I'm in a situation where I have direct reports, so for example, when I was at Optimizely, I had 3 direct reports as a content lead, and I made sure to be there for my team, whether it was one-on-ones or a weekly meeting. And I started out with, let's talk about non-work stuff because we're human first. And so, what is something that's going on in everybody's life right now? What is something we can help each other out with at work? And so I just try to keep it, a high level positivity level, and so that people know, like, also they can approach me with anything. I'm a very empathetic leader, and I feel like emotional intelligence is a huge part of what goes into working with colleagues and your team. And so I just go in and I just feel like you get back what you put in. And so if I come on a call and my team sees I'm in a good mood and everything's great, they don't have to worry about layoffs or getting let go because, we're in good shape. I will always communicate that to them. Like if there's something going wrong or if there's something going awry and I'm allowed to tell my team about it, I will always keep the lines of communication open. But at the end of the day, like, I just feel if people know things are fine, you're going to get the best work out of them. You're going to get the best attitudes out of them. And I always try to have a great attitude, whether it was going into the office or working remotely like I am now. It's easy to let life get to you. It really
Yeah.
is. And when I was in school, and I mean, I was 15 years old when my mom was diagnosed with cancer, and I still went to class. I still tried to be like, I was pretty funny in high school. I was a total nerd, but I wasn't like the class clown, but somehow I got people to laugh, and that was contagious for me. I don't know how I didn't go into stand-up comedy, but like I got my
I
teachers to
think your
laugh, and
fourth
I got
strength was Joker. So
yeah,
we
yeah,
didn't
yeah.
even talk about that.
Right? Yeah, so
Hey,
I
what do you
just
think about? So I think that in some cases, confidence and positivity are synonymous. But I do
yes.
feel like the lately, I feel like it's very demeaning to yourself when you're like, "Oh, this isn't rocket science. We're not saving someone's life. This doesn't
Yeah.
matter." I think that
Mm,
that's a common thing that people convince themselves of. But in reality, if you are down or you feel like you have to look over your shoulder or there's negativity, your confidence drops, it impacts you outside of work
oh,
as
yeah.
much or even more. I know for myself personally, like I would be drained when my confidence would
Mhm.
drop or there was so
Yep.
much negativity. Like my family would feel it. I
Mhm.
would be like, on a Sunday, I'd just be sitting comatose or whatever. And I feel
Yes.
like it's demeaning when people personally say that to themselves. And I think that, I'm going to try to stop that comment because everybody has a place in what they're doing, regardless of what they're doing. And more importantly, that work life and the way you're feeling impacts you outside of your work hours.
100%. And like you said, we all have a purpose. We were all hired for a reason. We are, I don't want to say cogs in a machine because that's in itself is demeaning, but we all have a role to play that is we're all reaching one goal. We're all headed towards like keeping our company successful, keeping the product successful wherever we're at. We are working towards one goal. And I try to keep that in mind. Like I was hired for a purpose. There's a reason why I'm here. And I would enforce that with my team. Like there's a reason why you're all here. There's a reason why you are on this team. You are important. What you do matters. And I'm also the type of leader that gets in the trenches. I'm like, if you're overwhelmed, tell me. I'll take,
Right.
we'll divide and conquer. I'll take some of that, off your plate. But no, you're absolutely right. I mean, I've been in situations where, yeah, when it comes to your family being affected, I mean, my husband's like my therapist. And, he always asks me, like, so how was your day? What happened? What did so and so say today? And then he will just go off. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't mean to complain so much. And he's like, no, I mean, like, that's why I'm here. I'd rather you talk to me than, like, scream into a pillow or take 5 shots of tequila. I don't know, however people
Right.
cope,
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
like, when I used to commute, I would treat my drive home as a way to decompress. So,
Yeah.
like, I'd call my husband and be like, "I'm on my way home," and then I just listen to my music and just get lost in music is amazing. So it's like, certain songs take you back to a certain time and it's nostalgic. And so, like, by the time I get home, I'm calm again. And I don't have that now because I'm working remotely.
Right.
And so
Yes.
I have a
Your walk
treadmill in my
upstairs.
basement. Yeah.
Yeah. Your walk upstairs doesn't create enough time for you. So,
Yeah, yeah,
oh
yeah.
man, I feel like we could talk forever.
I know, this is great.
Yeah, this is amazing. I do want to get to you. Live in Columbus now for the last 3+ years. You came
Yes.
from Mesa, Arizona. You grew up
Yep.
most in Las Vegas. I want to ask
Oh, yes, I was
true or false
born in
question.
Vegas, but grew up in San Diego. I've been everywhere.
Oh, right. Yes, yes, yes. So I wanted to do true or false, and I had a selection to choose from. But because you're relatively newer to Columbus, I feel like we could both learn some
Yes.
facts about Columbus. So let's go through some true or false about
Ooh,
Columbus, Ohio. Are you
I love
ready?
this. Yes.
All right.
Bring it.
Guy Fieri was born in Columbus, Ohio.
I believe that's true.
That is true. He was
Yes.
born in Columbus,
I have heard that.
Yes. I try to do anybody that has like a beard or whatever. I try to bring in some
You
trivia about
you
them.
you can rel you can relate, yes.
Yeah, not the cooking part by any means. It's
Oh
just the
gosh.
facial hair.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, the first Wendy's was built in Columbus.
I believe that's true too.
That is true.
Yes,
Yes.
the headquarters is here, and the reason why I know that, and again, because my husband travels a lot, I think before we lived here, he and his group called the Diamonds, they do 50s, 60s doo-wop music, they took a picture in front of the Wendy's where there is a statue of Dave, and they're, like, sitting around him on the bench. So, yes, like
That's amazing. Okay, yeah. So you have a little personal
I have
experience.
prior knowledge.
All right, the first air cargo flight landed in Columbus. Very interesting fact.
I feel like it landed in Dayton and not Columbus.
It did land in Columbus.
It did? Shoot.
Yes.
I mean, I know it was in Ohio because there's a lot, around here about the Wright brothers, and so I was like, "I don't know if that was Columbus, but hey." You learn
Yes.
something new every
Yes.
day.
And then apparently I'm hungry because I have another food question from Guy Fieri to Wendy's. Oreo
Yes.
cookies was born in Columbus.
I have not heard that, but it's probably true.
It's true. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. All right. And then my favorite question, Geraldine Mock, who was the first woman to fly around the world, was from Columbus, and it took off and landed in Columbus.
These are great questions. I don't know where you found these. I hope that's true. I'm going to say true.
That is true. In
Okay.
1964, she took 29 days and 11 hours.
Nice.
Yes.
Nice.
That's amazing, right?
Good
I
for
didn't,
her.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had never
Badass.
heard of her name, which is interesting. You would think that that would be something that, you know, we'd
Yeah.
learn,
No,
but
that was
yes.
great. I was
Yeah.
hoping you'd ask something about Brutus the Buckeye, who's the
Oh,
OSU mascot. He's my favorite. I don't know why I'm so obsessed with this mascot. Like my husband and I watched the OSU game on Saturday, and every time they showed him, I was like, "There's Brutus," because I'd be like in the kitchen cooking, and be like, "Where?" I have Christmas ornaments of him. I have a beer opener of him.
seems like it should be a Halloween costume with you and your husband, right?
You know,
Mm.
that's a great idea.
I don't know who beat Brutus the Buckeye, but yes, yes.
Speaking of Halloween, you should have seen me yesterday. I mentioned this weekend that my chorus has a show, and the theme is witches. So we're singing like, that old black magic and witchcraft and Bewitched, Bothered, and Bewildered. And so we're playing characters in a theme park, and of course I'm playing the Wicked Witch. And my face was all green yesterday. You probably can't tell on camera, but like the edges of my face are still green. I was trying to get most of it off last night. But yeah, if I can send you pictures. You want to include that like in your blog post for this, whatever.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's another
Have you
thing.
seen Agatha all along yet? Have you seen that?
I have not.
Yeah.
We're gonna watch it. I actually have
Yeah.
a Funko Pop doll of Agatha.
Oh, it's
She's
actually
my favorite character from WandaVision.
it's pretty entertaining. So
Okay.
I actually have one last question deviating from the question that you thought I was going to ask.
Oh,
But
okay.
as a singing meteorologist, is your favorite album Purple Rain?
It should be because purple's my
It
favorite
should be.
color. It's up there. It's definitely
Purple
up there.
Rain.
Purple
Yes.
Rain. Yeah,
I mean,
it's in my top 10.
I think it has to be the top inherently.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would say my favorite album of all time is probably Beach Boys' Endless Summer.
Okay. I mean, that has something to do with weather. There's the beach, there's waves, there's that stuff.
Talk
So
about sunshine, but yeah,
yes.
that's great. You nailed it.
Well, it was wonderful talking to you. I
You too.
really,
This was
really
amazing.
appreciate it. Yes. So thank you for joining. It was great seeing you, Laura.
You too, Justin. Thank you so much. This was so much fun.